There's something about motels that never sits right. Maybe it's knowing that anyone can check in with cash and a fake name. Or maybe it's the fact that hundreds of strangers have slept in the same bed you're about to crawl into. Either way, motels have a way of making you feel exposed. Tonight, I've got 3 stories from people who found out just how thin the walls really are. Story 1. This was back in 2019 when I was driving from Texas to Colorado for a friend's wedding. I'd been on the road for about 9 hours, and I was losing the battle to stay awake. So I pulled off somewhere around the New Mexico border to find a place to crash. The motel I ended up at was one of those flat, single-story places with the doors facing the parking lot and a vending machine humming outside the office. The woman at the front desk barely looked at me. She slid a key across the counter and told me checkout was at 11. Room 14. The room smelled like air freshener trying to cover up something worse, and the AC rattled every few minutes, but I was too tired to care. I brushed my teeth, set an alarm, and got into bed. Sometime around 2 in the morning, I woke up because my phone screen had lit up on the nightstand. It was a text from a number I didn't recognize. It said, "You left your lights on." I figured someone at the front desk had my number and was doing me a favor. So I got up and looked through the curtain. My car was right outside and the lights were off. I texted back saying they had the wrong room. No reply. I got back in bed, but about 20 minutes later, my phone lit up again. Same number. "Your door doesn't look locked." I sat up and stared at the screen. The deadbolt was turned. The chain was on. I didn't respond. I just lay there watching my phone. Another 20 minutes. Another text. "You should check under the bed." I didn't check under the bed. I grabbed my shoes, my keys, and my phone, undid the locks as quietly as I could, and walked straight to my car in my boxers and a t-shirt. I drove to a truck stop about 15 miles down the highway and slept in the driver's seat with the doors locked. I never went back for the stuff I left behind. I still don't know who was texting me or how they got my number. The motel didn't ask for it when I checked in. Story 2. I was 19 and working a summer job doing furniture deliveries. One week, they sent me and another guy, Rob, on a 2-day run about 6 hours away. The company booked us a motel for the night, one of those highway places where every room faces the parking lot and the curtains are a shade of brown that used to be something else. We checked in around 8, grabbed fast food, and went to our rooms. Mine was on the ground floor at the far end. Rob's was a few doors down. I watched TV for a while and turned the lights off around 11. I don't know how long I'd been asleep when something woke me up. It took me a second to figure out what it was. Someone was trying the door handle. Not knocking, not jiggling it aggressively, just slowly turning it, testing it, seeing if it would open. It stopped after a few seconds, and I told myself it was probably just a drunk guest who got confused about which room was theirs. It happens. I rolled over and tried to go back to sleep, but then I heard it again, and this time it wasn't the handle. It was a scratching sound, low and deliberate, running along the bottom of the door, like someone was dragging their fingernails across the wood. It went on for maybe 10 seconds, and then stopped. I was fully awake now, sitting up in bed, staring at the door in the dark. The gap between the bottom of the door and the floor was about an inch wide, and in the faint light from the parking lot, I could see shadows moving in that gap. Someone was standing right there. I watched the shadows shift slowly, like whoever it was kept leaning from one foot to the other. Then they crouched down. I know they crouched because the shadow filled the entire gap, and I heard breathing. Slow, steady breathing right under the door. I didn't move. I didn't make a sound. I just sat there, watching that gap, listening to someone breathe on the other side for what felt like forever. Then the shadow pulled away, and I heard footsteps on the concrete, slow and unhurried, moving away from my door. I didn't sleep after that. The next morning, I told Rob about it, and he laughed and said it was probably just some crackhead. But when we were loading the truck, I walked past my door and looked down. There were scratches in the paint at the bottom. Fresh ones. Story 3. A couple of years ago, my girlfriend and I were driving back from a concert, and we were both too tired to make it the rest of the way home. We found a motel off the highway that looked decent enough. Clean parking lot, fully lit sign, actual flowers in the office window. The room was small but clean, which was all we cared about. My girlfriend fell asleep within minutes, but I was still wired from the concert, so I was scrolling on my phone with the sound off. About an hour in, I heard a click. Not from the hallway or from outside, but from inside the room. It came from the wall behind the headboard. I put my phone down and listened. Nothing. I figured it was the heating system or pipes or whatever, and went back to scrolling. Then I heard it again. And this time, it wasn't a click. It was a slide, like something opening. I turned on the flashlight on my phone and pointed it at the wall behind the bed. At first, I didn't see anything, just wallpaper with a faded floral pattern. But then I noticed a seam that didn't match. It was about 2 feet wide and ran from waist height to just above the headboard. I got out of bed and pressed my hand against it. It moved. There was a panel in the wall that had been papered over, and it was slightly ajar, pushed open maybe half an inch from the other side. I leaned in close and felt warm air coming through the gap. And I could smell cologne or deodorant, something that was definitely not coming from our room. Someone was on the other side of that wall, and they had just opened it. I woke my girlfriend up, grabbed our stuff, and we were in the car within 3 minutes. I didn't go to the front desk. We just left. I reported it to the police the next day, and they said they'd look into it, but I never heard back. I still think about what would have happened if I'd fallen asleep first, if I hadn't heard the click. Sleep tight tonight. And if you're ever staying somewhere cheap and something doesn't feel right, trust that feeling. It's usually right. Which of these stories creeped you out the most? Let me know in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe while you're there.